5:30, but I believe it is actually 6:30 because my computer says 6:30 and it jives with what my phone says and what my clock at home says. So the clock in this room is incorrect. Oh, this could be fun. I think that was you.
Go. Sounds better.
Yeah, hello, hello?
Yep, that was me, sorry.
Okay. Speaking of which, I should turn off my mic just in case.
Cameron?
Cameron, we just
Cameron, welcome.
called the meeting to order. You are welcome.
I'm going to disorder it.
So, Brandy, now that our fourth member is here, please do roll call.
Chair Belize,
Here?
Vice Chair Wise,
Here?
Commissioner Brenna is excused, Commissioner Muick,
Present?
and Commissioner Rothi.
Here.
And Council Member Liaison is excused as well. And then also present is me, Brandy Howe, Community Development Director.
Excellent. Thank you. That being the case, item 3 on the agenda is to adopt the agenda. Does anyone have any comments about that? And if not, could make a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll move to adopt the agenda.
As well.
Motion from Commissioner Weiss, second from Commissioner Rothi. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No nays. With that, we have meeting minutes from June 3rd, which was our special meeting, for review and approval. I reviewed those meeting minutes. I did not personally see any concerns with that. Are there any comments about the meeting minutes?
I'll move to accept.
I'll second.
Motion from Commissioner Rothi, second from Commissioner Weiss. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I'm abstaining since I wasn't here for the meeting.
Well, that's probably a good idea. Excellent. Motion passes. Meeting minutes from the 3rd of June. 3rd of June? Yes.
Yep.
Agenda item number 5, meeting open to the public for any items that are not on the agenda for the public to speak. There appears to be no one present in the room from the
One
public
online.
and no one online. So that was easy. And we do not have public hearings tonight. No scheduled public hearings. And we are to item 7. We're going to break records tonight.
Let's make it a.
Brandy, can you provide comments on the staff report?
I sure can. I will bring up the staff report on the screen so we can walk through it together.
This is in your way, let me know.
So if you'll recall, back in May, we started going through, it may have been April that we started this process, going through the zoning map and reviewing it against the comprehensive plan. And we did a review of half of the discrepancies that we found at the May meeting, and now this meeting will be an overview of the remainder. I would like to point out before we dive into the staff report, there was at least one property that you had asked me to contact the property owner about to see if they felt like they would be interested in having their property looked at for rezoning, and that was at 7th Street North. I think it's 2242 or 20, I really can't see the address, but I could sure point it out to you. It's the one that was right adjacent to the 7th Street Townhome site. Do you recall?
Yeah.
I can't remember which one that was. The one, oh, the
The-
townhomes that are over on 7th, between 7th and 6th.
It's 2264. I think it's the northern one.
Yep.
That's this one over here. I did Avenue
Yeah, yeah.
Talk about that.
So I did have a conversation with both of the husband and wife. They came in to meet with me, and I talked about comprehensive planning and what the future land use map means in terms of, potential future density options and how it relates to the zoning ordinance. And they were very glad to have been brought in and informed about how these things could impact them. At this time, they prefer to not have anything done.
Okay.
So that is what they would like to do, if that is what we would be
Good to
willing to
know.
do. Yep.
That's nice, one-on-one contact. That's good for the community, I think, to do that when it makes sense.
Yeah, I think it worked out well. It's a little tricky to find contacts for people, because it's
Yeah.
not really published, but I was able to Google it, and it happened to be the right person, so it was very easy. So moving on to our discussion of the staff report. So the next area is Area 10, and as you can see, there's basically a three block area along 7th Avenue that is presently zoned for single family, and the future land use designation is medium density residential. All of those existing uses are single family, and as they are currently platted, they're sufficiently small that a higher density is not really possible until lot consolidation happens. So I think this site and some of the other ones for the future, my comments are going to be kind of similar. If we really do want to be proactive and rezone it, that's going to give the development community the signal that we are very sincere about wanting high density to happen here, and we want to have it happen sooner than later. If we leave it as is, I think we're giving them the other signal saying that we're comfortable with our current single-family designation. So just a reminder, the existing maximum density with the single-family homes is almost 7 units per acre. And with the medium density, it's between 6 and 12 dwelling units per acre. So the side-by-side of the existing and the proposed zoning the existing zoning is on the left, and the future land use designations are on the right. Any discussion or comments on this area?
Nothing from me.
Do you have any sense of, just down the street where the new, basically between McKnight and Third, that new development of townhomes that's there?
McKnight and Third.
It's,
Oh, the M&I townhomes?
yes. Just to get a sense of, do you have any idea what the dwelling unit per acre of that is? Maybe that's a hard metric to visualize, and so I'm trying to compare it to something else, but.
Yeah, I think I can find out if you let me take a look here.
I mean, that's obviously a much larger property.
I think that was a PUD.
Oh.
I think.
I would be surprised if it wasn't, just
Yeah.
based on the density.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna share my screen again.
If it's easy to find, that's okay. I don't want to derail the meeting here.
Oh, I don't think we're derailing. I think it's gonna focus the conversation, because as we go through these areas, even though they're different places in the city, it's still the same conversation.
Right.
Is that the Anchorview Apartments?
The one across it's to the south of the trail from the Anchorview Apartments.
So these here,
Yeah. Yep.
on the gateway curve, so to speak?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've got the area, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not sure how many dwelling units are in there. Maybe you guys can count them while I do the measurement of the area.
So there's 4 in each thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
I think they're, I don't think the units are stacked.
Yeah, it's just
I
one
don't
per.
believe they are. I think it's one per plot,
Right. Yep.
but I'm not certain about that.
I didn't use the right tool. Boy, you have somebody watching, it's impossible to do it.
Looks like it's about 80 maybe.
At least.
Okay, so that's about 8 acres.
Okay, so that's close
10?
to 10,
10-ish
10-ish.
per acre,
Okay, yep.
So that,
maybe more. Might be on the high end of the 12
Yeah,
number.
yeah.
I think
that-
96 units
Oh,
is
is it?
what I just counted on a quick rough.
Yeah,
basis.
so it's close to the 12 number then.
and it's zoned MU3. Which is interesting.
But it's
Yeah, but
helpful to, because, I can picture what that looks like, and to think that that's 10, or 12, let's say 12 dwelling units per acre, that's,
That's dense.
yeah. it gives-
That's about as dense as you can go in that kind of configuration where
Right.
they're side by
Other
side.
than, yeah, apartments or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
right.
yeah, you have to start stacking them.
Yep. Okay, well, thank you for doing that.
So those all townhomes.
Yeah, they're like, well, I think 3-story, right? They're tall.
At least 2. I'd have to drive by.
It's,
Well, you should be able to see it on Google Earth,
Yeah.
use Street View. I can't remember, do we have somewhere on 7th Street a welcome to North St. Paul monument, or is there a gateway, is there anything planned for up there? If we don't,
I don't think we have any monument welcome signs. We have wayfinding. And it would be probably just a standard metal sign that,
this is like entering North St. Paul.
right.
There's one of those on County Road B as you come in that I drive past every day, but I can't picture one elsewhere.
Just for clarification purposes, M&I is MU3. Townhomes are permitted by right in the MU3. I'm not sure what the density would be, though. So we'll just assume that it was either a PUD or it was, met the zoning.
Yep.
But back to our original conversation about what do we do with these? And maybe I'll move on to the next one.
Yeah.
So if we look at those 3, what's the size of each one of those 3 that we're talking about in Area 10?
Okay, let's take a peek here.
Each individual lot, you mean?
So,
Each lot or
no, you got the 3 individual boxes.
the boxes? How big are the boxes?
So how big is each one of those boxes to give us a contrast to what we were just comparing to?
Well, if that was 8 acres, she was measuring 8-ish. These are overall acre and a half, 2, like that largest one is maybe 2 acres, maybe.
So the triangle in the middle is 3/4 of an acre.
Yeah,
So they're
Yeah.
they're little.
they're pretty small.
So just eyeballing this, for example, I would think that like maybe 4 would be
Yeah.
pretty tight.
Which is basically what's, it's
personally
only
speaking,
2 or 3
I would
houses.
be
there, yeah.
up for upzoning those lots along 7th Street because, among other things, it's a transit corridor. And so the greater density that you have along a transit corridor, the better it is for the transit route and the better it will be for providing service to that area because, more riders will probably mean more service. So given that it wouldn't be a detriment to the people that currently live there, it wouldn't change their tax base or anything like that, I would say along Seventh Street at least, it's worth upzoning that to something a little denser. That's my own opinion, though.
Yeah, I don't see, I mean, I think my answer would be the same for a lot of these that, you know, and Brandy, you even say here that, you know, individually, you're not gonna be doing anything different on any of these parcels, no matter what happens. It's only if, you know, somebody is able to acquire all of them or a lot of them, that something could potentially happen. So there's not even, we're talking very unlikely that that would happen in the near future. So I feel fine, you know, matching the comp plan for that.
The other thing too, that as I'm thinking about, I'm not sure exactly where it is, but remember there is that crest of the hill on Seventh Street somewhere in that general area. And it would make operations on Seventh a little safer if you could reduce the number of driveways coming out near the crest of that hill, which would happen more likely if it were to be eventually taken over and redone as an apartment complex or a condo complex or something like that. So, again, that's, like you say, probably quite a ways down the road, but I think it could make the entering and exiting Seventh a little bit safer were that to happen in the future.
Jim or Patrick, any thoughts?
I guess I'm pretty, I mean, I'm able to be flexible. I think it's very important that we consider what the property owners think is a good idea, because I really think it influences, well, it's, the optics are important, but I think more important is really what is best for the community. And one of the things that I was asking myself was, are there, because we talked about this, what the land use plan, the projected land use, future land use plan says, and what our zoning map actually documents for current zoning. Is there any legal reason we have to change the zoning map? My understanding was there isn't.
That's also my understanding.
Yeah.
I'm not an expert in Minnesota.
Yeah. You're not
Comp
expected
plan.
to be the legal counsel, so.
Yeah, from my experience, comprehensive plans are your future understanding of how the community is going to grow and change. The zoning is the implementation action that you can take in order to implement that. It's not forced. If you wanted to make a zoning change, it needs to be consistent with the comp plan, though.
Right,
And if
right.
it can't be, then the comp plan needs an amendment.
So I guess the important thing that we need to consider, no matter what the piece of property is what does it do to the neighborhood? What does it do to property values, things like that? And I think with the people that I've spoken to about such things, it's all over the map as far as what people think is reality. You increase the zoning and potential density, and a developer might come along and say, hey, I'll offer you good money for your property. And it might be a great thing, and it might increase the property value. On the other hand, the neighbor next to it will say, oh, that's terrible. Now they're gonna put in apartments next to me. So it really goes both ways depending on who looks at it and how they look at it. And changing the zoning, what the advantage, the positive that comes from that is for someone who would want to redevelop, and it takes a step, a time step and a money step out of their process. If they wanted to come in and build the, 10 units per acre or something like that. If we change the zoning, it removes one step, the step that they would have to request a zoning change. So that's the only thing the only positive that we really bring to it that's very obvious if we take action.
I would disagree with that in that I would say that if we change the zoning, then that gives developers the idea that we are amenable to that, whereas if we keep the zoning as is, then they have to be responsible for looking at the property and thinking, is this something that I want to try to buy 2 or 3 pieces of so I can redevelop it or not? And they probably would not be as likely to do that if they don't see some sort of indication from the city that, that might be a possibility. So, and I do agree that I think it's very important to talk to the local property owner and explain to them the circumstances, but I feel like 7th Street being the main street into town is a little bit different from being over on 3rd Street, because that's not a major thoroughfare. So I don't want to ride roughshod over the residents. Personally, I don't see where upzoning that is riding roughshod over them, but like I say, that's something that's a personal feeling, and if the rest of the council feels like, that's something that we don't want to do, then I'm fine with that. But I'm just thinking, basically, I'm thinking 7th Street from McKnight all the way down to 120 really is kind of a higher development area, because it is the main street into the downtown area, and like it's already 2/3 of it is already zoned for commercial or higher density. So.
Yeah, I mean, Cameron, I agree with you. I said something very similar the last time we went through these. But I think I just get a little uncomfortable with, somebody saying, oh, heaven forbid somebody puts an apartment next to me. That apartments aren't inherently bad. Density is not bad. And it's something that a city needs to thrive. Certainly doesn't have to be a lot, but I think I would want to have more discussions with people that have that viewpoint, because I think it's a viewpoint that could be, it's a viewpoint that I think is a slippery slope, I guess I should say. Density is not a bad thing, and the reason that North St. Paul is in a lot better position now than it was 15 years ago or 20 years ago is because we have more people here now, and I think that's a pretty good thing that we have more activity downtown. And so I think there's smart ways of doing this, and I still don't see we're not forcing anybody's hand here, we're not making anyone change anything, it's not changing any tax burdens, it's not changing really anything at all. It's a signal that the city is open to, in however long it would be, that we're actually looking towards the future and saying, you know what, this is a main corridor. We may want to have more people living along that corridor in 10 years or in 15 years or whatever it takes. So, yeah, I think to me, I don't see any harm in just aligning with what the comp plan is saying. We're not it's not forcing anybody to do anything they don't want to do.
So I think I hear three of the four of you kind of in agreement that this is eliminating a procedural step by us taking this action to demonstrate our support of our comp plan.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay, so this number 10, we're marking for potential rezoning. Area 10, okay. Let's move on to Area 11, which is the next block over to the east. This site is currently zoned R2, which is the mixed residential, and the comp plan is suggesting that it be upgraded to the R3. So this is similar to Area 10, but it's the even higher density zoning, which would allow 12 to 22 dwelling units per acre.
Which is likely more of an apartment type up to.
It could be, I mean,
I'm just trying to,
but given the linear nature of the area, I don't know how,
It would be difficult, but
Yeah.
you're right. That amount of density would probably be something stacked of some sort,
Yeah.
but it would be hard to get. It's a very narrow piece of property, so.
I know, that's why I'm looking at it and
Yeah.
contrasting to, is it really practical to anticipate?
I'm not.
Just, again, I'm just
I'm
trying
not
to-
sure how they came up with the,
Sure.
with the future land use coloring, because to me, the land, if you're looking at, yeah, right up on the
Right.
screen, the land just to the south of it, that triangle is
It's R2.
R2.
Yeah.
So why not make all of it
That-
R3?
That would be kind of my inclination, is to make that whole thing R2. And then the previous blocks that we were on would be R2.
It
Yep.
is R2 now.
It's, yep, this block, this whole triangular area is R2, and
Yeah.
the comp plan is suggesting just that one
And
part along Seventh Avenue.
I would be inclined to go against what the comp plan is, to have that be. R2 feels like a more applicable and realistic use of those parcels.
Although it probably, an R3 would probably provide the capability to do something like is across the street, which is the multi-level apartments.
Okay. Got it.
That's
Okay, well,
what's
if they
across
are-
the
If they're
street.
across the street from there, then yes, I could see supporting an R3.
You could potentially do
Yeah.
that then. Yep.
I'll change,
Yep.
I'll change that. I'll concur with what Patrick just raised.
I think it's going to be challenging in our current environment to have any kind of apartment there that is going to be without parking. But to your point, this is a transit corridor. We are trying to promote alternatives to the single occupancy vehicles, so it sounds like there's support.
But they could do underground parking there,
Sure.
so, and then have them come out on the alley or something like that. Like I say, I'm sure that that's probably not as likely to happen in North St. Paul as it would be in some other communities, but it doesn't preclude them having parking.
Well, and 22 units is the max. I mean, 12 to 22 is what the zoning would be permissible for. And I'm just thinking, I wonder how those use tables.
I think it's also just
So the way that it's written, it's, you have to have at least 1980.
Rear dwelling unit.
Boy, that doesn't even seem, that's going to limit you right there on how many units you can put in there. So there's no mandate as to you have to fit within those density ranges. You're going to be limited by the acreage on your site. So I guess if the developer has the creativity and the market can support it for something larger,
I'm good with 11,
okay.
as you've proposed, Brandy.
I'm not proposing.
Or,
I'm taking cues from you guys.
He's merely describing.
As as it has been outlined in the diagram for the comp plan.
Oh,
How's
my
that?
screen sharing paused. What's going on? Okay.
I think it's also just helpful, you know, I mean, I don't know if symbolically is the right word, but, you know, like, this is the main corridor coming into town, so that in and of itself may not really make a whole lot of sense, but I think, you know, looking 30 years down the line or whatever, I think it's pushing the story that, you know, makes sense to me. So I think maybe it's a piece of what could happen at some point, maybe not the whole, you know. But
I
it's,
think you could transition that number 11, area 11 to R3, leave the area behind at R2. And if somebody wanted to come and redevelop, there are always options, shall we say,
Oh, sure.
different ways of doing it.
they'd have to buy
Yeah,
one,
I think we could definitely
10 properties.
probably evaluate in a manner that would be, I think what you're saying is that there's logic behind it if they wanted to grab some of those other parcels and do a larger development. Okay, so area 10 and 11, we're proposing to upzone. Area 12 is between First Street and Helen Street, and also Third Avenue and Second Avenue. The existing zoning is single family, and the proposed future land use is medium-density residential, which would be the R2. So again, this is another upzone. It's adjacent to higher density zoning, and this site seems like another logical option for
And
zoning.
those other triangular parcels we were just talking about are right across the street, so, and that's already R2 as well, so.
So it's bringing consistency to the map as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Well, let's put a pin in that one, and we'll talk about the next one, which is okay, there's two, 13A and B. Okay, so 13A.
So does the parking lot need to be rezoned?
I'm trying to figure out where this is.
Fourth and,
Parking lot for the new apartment building and,
No, I think this is, maybe this
is
will
it
help.
Helen Street on the right side of your map?
Oh, here we go.
it's
Is this
Helen on
right?
the left, I think.
Helen is on the left.
Helen is on the left?
This map doesn't match. My map doesn't match this map. That's why I'm having a hard time.
So it's between Margaret and Helen.
Yep.
Yep.
So you're right, that is the Max Steiner parking lot. Okay, so 13A covers the parking lot for the new multi-use building constructed in 2020.
Yeah.
Rezoning is not recommended.
By the way, I don't ever park, I didn't even know that there was parking
I
back
didn't
there.
either. I was like, I thought that was just for the apartment. That's interesting.
Same.
See, I'm confused because this map that was printed for me doesn't show it as MU3. It shows it as R2.
Did that get changed as part of the apartment development?
I'm not sure if it did, but regardless, the parking lot should be zoned whatever the adjoining building is zoned, which would be MU1, I believe. So my recommendation is that the 13A should match the Max
Yep.
building.
Yeah, yeah.
13B has one little triangle that is
like a parking lot for something.
I think it is apartment, sorry, I think the apartment's just across the street. It's the parking for that.
Yeah.
So my recommendation is we treat that the same as everything else in 13B, whatever the outcome of that is. And the recommendation of the comp plan for that is medium density,
R2.
which is continuing the trend of increasing the density pattern along.
Near Seventh Ave. Although I think we're pushing out farther, but with the current apartment development where Max is there, that, I think that encourages density there along Margaret. So that starts to make some sense.
Yep, that makes sense.
Okay. Area 14 is adjacent to Charles and Fifth Avenue. And that is presently R1.
For some reason, those 3 little parcels in the comp plan they were showing multifamily there, which is kind of a weird, in just those.
Well, I think, I'm pretty sure that there's a house there at the southwest corner of Charles and Fourth, I think,
Fifth.
that is like a duplex or maybe even a triplex. Because I've noticed it's got several different doorways coming in from the main street on different sides, so.
So my statement here is that this area is a candidate for upzoning, given its proximity and adjacency to the downtown parking lot. And I don't know why we chose those 3 lots to be R3 versus R2.
Wouldn't it make, wouldn't it make, I mean, does it make sense, is there a reason, yeah, is there a reason why you'd have them be zoned separately?
The only thing I'm thinking is that those 3 lots are closer to the MU1, the downtown zoning, which may have some implications in terms of, typically you would want to have a transition from your single family and kind of move upwards in density as you get to more higher intensity uses, which your downtown would be. So that's closer to your downtown marginally. Whereas the stuff to the north of Fifth Avenue is abutting the single family just to the south.
I would say from a kind of a visual standpoint, to me, it would make more sense. It would make sense to make that the property on the north side of Fifth Avenue up 1 level to R2, and then those 3 lots to the north, R3. That way you've kind of got a little bit of almost like a stair step.
A little bit of
up
buffer.
towards and those 3 lots, they're on the other side of, what's really essentially a driveway into the parking lot
Right.
behind it. And you've got the larger development there on 7th. So to me, that makes some sense to kind of stair step them, for lack of a better term.
So you support what the comp plan is suggesting?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
I'm good with that.
Yeah, I agree.
So we're good with it as shown? Okay. Okay, 15A and B. Where are we? Between Henry and Charles.
And Henry.
Oh, I see, okay.
A seems to make logical sense.
Yeah.
Oh, yep, okay, so what do we have here in A? It's zoned R3, so it's high density. I apologize for the typos, it wasn't catching that. Oops,
What typo is that?
I've seen a couple in this report so far.
None of us are,
Okay, so these are all single family, and they're in the middle of our downtown district.
yep,
Okay, and so our suggestion is to upzone to,
MU1.
To MU1?
in that, what's down there? Is that kind of where we have like the auto businesses, the Hillcrest, I think is what it's called?
Are you saying in 15A?
Yeah, just what's in that part of the downtown.
Street on the far left side there?
It's between Charles.
Charles?
and Henry.
Okay, yeah, that's on the opposite side there, you've got there's that vacant lot that's up on the hill,
Right.
which is not in this, and then next to that, there's a barber shop, and then 3 or 4 residential homes.
Yep.
And to me, those are kind of strange, let's call them leftovers, for lack of a better word. They're nice-looking homes and all that, but especially if we get greater density downtown, I'm going to wonder how easy those are going to be to sell to as single-family homes in the future. So I just wonder if it would be better for their property owners even to have the option of, selling them as a single family or as something to be developed later.
Yep, that makes
I'd be in
sense.
favor of upzoning it to kind of
To MU1,
come around the full circle on my argument here.
okay. And then the couple of blocks to the south of that are currently zoned R1, and we are suggesting that they be R2. Which, again, is fitting with the trend that we've already established of increasing the density just to the south of 7th.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah, I think I'm in favor of that, because we're only talking about, a couple of 100 feet south of 7th, so I see that as being a natural area for a slightly higher density.
okay, area 16 is between 10th Avenue and 9th Avenue. So it's the next block over between Henry and Highway 120. Again, it's zoned single family. We have high-density residential immediately to the north, and so the comp plans suggest R2.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Just moving right along. Here we go, the Old National Bank site. What is going on with this one?
You got 2 triangle properties. This is on the north side of 7th.
These properties are owned by Old National Bank. The future land use plan suggests our MU3. MU3 is the least restrictive of the zoning districts. Okay,
Well, remember that property up there on the northwest corner of that, I think is a senior care facility, so it's already fairly high density.
Right.
So I don't see a problem with going for a higher density for this area and making the use fairly unrestricted.
let's look at the use table here quick. So okay, so that fits with your multifamily housing, okay, so higher density. The only thing I think I wanted to point out was that your MU3 is the district where anything goes, basically. You can have your funeral home, your auto body shop, your gas station, bowling alley, whatever, next to your senior housing facility.
There's lots of opportunity for redevelopment over in that area between 7th Ave and 36, the Gateway Trail. The Sweet Living and the bank are the most stable, but Caliber Collision, that what used to be Century, that's been there forever. And they do a fine business, so can't imagine that that's going to change. And apparently that Burger King is really does well for itself.
Really?
At least that's what I had heard years ago.
I keep hearing that too.
Between that Burger King and Caribou, those two places, I have heard through the grapevine
Yeah.
that they print money.
Yeah,
That's the reason,
Well, that must be why the Burger King stays open, is they're printing money back there.
yeah, exactly.
I think the bike shop does well too, over on the corner there.
Yeah.
it's a great location, and it's a high traffic
Bike shop would just,
intersection.
it's just too bad the bike shop couldn't be on the Gateway side of the,
So I'm hearing, go ahead and upzone this one to MU3? Okay.
certainly the A,
So,
no question about that. Well, what I was wondering is, what's the current zoning of those two residences, which you don't have outlined?
those
So-
two,
Yeah, that's the MU3 as well.
Those are currently MU3?
Yep.
Okay,
So the bank is kind of the oddball out in that.
yeah.
Okay, so let's go to 18. Wow, we're checking along.
The bank may want to redevelop that themselves, you know, they could always put a large apartment building on top of their bank if they wanted to.
They could?
that would be an interesting bank use.
There's a lot of banks that are redeveloping right now because they have these large
Mm-hmm.
parking lots and branches that don't really do enough business, and they can downsize their branch and sell off 90% of the parcel, and
Heaven knows that parking lot there is not well used except what, maybe on event day Fridays, maybe. And even at that, it's so far down, I don't think I see a lot. I think really the only time I really see that lot full is when there's something big going on at the, is that the VFW or the other one that's across the street?
Oh, the American Legion?
Oh, American Legion, yeah.
Let's move on to 18. This is City Hall. So the back half of City Hall is different zoning than the front half. And we should fix that. So,
How did that ever happen?
Because the
wasn't me.
permitted in either zoning, and so they just did it. But when the city hall was.
Well, yeah, when the
was
zoning
done,
map
they
and the parcels.
replatted the property and stuff too, didn't they?
I don't know if it was replatted. I think that's the problem. Had it been replatted, the zoning would be not
That's strange.
not bizarre. So looking at it, it appears that the former small lots that were historically single-family, those were all zoned MU1. And then the stuff kind of behind the downtown buildings is the MU3. So I think that's why we have the backside being the MU3.
So is there a reason why the front side facing Margaret is MU1 and not having that entire intersection of Sepulveda, Margaret, and all of that area being MU3? That feels like, just reading the description in the previous one about land use, it would feel like that's,
I would suspect, not having been part of the comp plan, that the MU1 that's the district that's intended to be your downtown, your shorefront type of building. And I believe that the downtown is intended to go up Margaret, so 7th Avenue and then up Margaret.
it's not exactly like R1, R2, R3. It's a different kind of,
Character, it's a different character of commercial type development.
so when I look at the current and I look at the proposed, it still looks like Oh, got it. Never mind, I was reading it wrong. My mistake.
Yeah, I think we're saying that the backside of City Hall should be our MU1. The difference between the MU1 versus the MU3 is basically, you know what we mean by downtown. By downtown, there's like no parking. MU3 is your suburban type commercial development target and what have you. MU2, there's a couple of spots that haven't gotten a full grasp on what we are doing with MU2, but there's so few of them in the city that we're not grappling with them right now.
So looking at things, it looks like the planning office and the utilities are in MU1 and the police department's in MU3, right?
Yeah.
Correct. So let's fix it, shall we?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
I'd say so.
Last one.
Oh, are we done now?
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, there's one more to go,
Almost.
but
Okay. Area 19, what do we have here? This is the senior, oh no, this is the community center. The parking lot, and then the stormwater facility that serves Polar Ridge. Wow, this is weird. I think I'm going to disagree with our comp plan on this one. So the whole area is currently zoned MU3, which makes sense, given its
What does the
location.
comp plan say?
The comp plan is, if you look at the screen now,
Yeah.
it's saying that the parking lot and the community center should be single-family. I almost feel like this was a mistake somehow.
That looks like a mistake.
Gotta be a mistake.
Yeah. Yeah, that looks like a mistake.
And then the stormwater pond would be parks, which,
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
What's the building?
To the left, it's a volleyball facility,
that's the community center.
community center.
Center, but what's, that's City Hall, that's Community Center. Oh, that's a utility building or something there on the
I
corner.
think that's, yeah, for water.
Helen and Sepulveda. It's a water pump station or
Mhm.
something. I can't remember. I'll take my little guy and I'll look at it. Yeah, that's what it is. It's a utility building.
So do we want to keep it as is, or do we want to add the stormwater area as parkland, but keep the rest of it the same, or?
I don't know. Is there really a reason to make a change at this point? I mean, what's the positive influence of bothering to make that change?
Only thing I could think of is if you delineate that as a stormwater area, it could help keep someone from thinking that they could redevelop that whole plot. But one would assume that they would probably go out and take a look at it and realize that they can't develop in a wetland area.
I think that'd be a real push.
Yeah.
anybody's gonna go there.
I mean, I would, my suggestion would keep that bottom piece, that the comp plans are recommending a single family, not make that change.
No.
Yeah, no,
I would be
Makes no
for, I
sense.
mean, if there's a benefit to changing the other piece as a park for some reason, then great, otherwise I wouldn't even, unless there's a reason why they want to make that change.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I don't, another reason is now that I'm looking closer at our zoning ordinance, we don't even address parks in our land use table.
No.
We should at least allow parks in the land use table in the park district.
Yeah.
So let's leave that one alone.
Yep.
Okay. Well, that concludes the presentation. So I have us changing everything except for the last one to match our comp plan, which is nice and consistent in our decision-making. That's good.
And I'm not sure that there were any of the properties we've reviewed before that would be
Correct.
that we had said, oh yeah, we should do that change.
The last meeting was the
Yeah.
exact opposite. We
Yeah,
were gonna do
right,
nothing.
right.
And I think that that makes sense too. We're talking now about the core of the, city where change is anticipated, redevelopment is happening. So I think that makes sense in how we're moving forward. Next steps with this, I would like to get your guidance on how you would like to proceed. We could do a letter of introduction to these individuals that own these properties and their neighbors, letting them know that we're proposing that.
So let's just thinking forward, should we decide to proceed with changing the zoning and go through the entire process? Eventually, it goes to council. We go to public hearing, we get neighborhood input, we probably get neighborhood input besides that. Eventually, it goes to council for a decision. Can I suggest that maybe we put it on I don't know if it's a workshop agenda or something like that? In other words, document what we have decided we think we want to do, and then have some informal discussion with council about,
So the next
Next
step would be do
steps.
hey, this is what the planning commission is.
here's what we're thinking about doing, we'd like some input, because they will be the ultimate decision makers. And I guess I'd like to hear what they have to say. So if you could document on, a similar report to what we just talked about.
Sure, I could do that. The thing that concerns me with that, this isn't a high priority project.
Right,
So I'm thinking that just because it's budget time and our
Oh, yeah.
council meetings have been
yeah,
cut in half for July and August because of holidays, this may get pushed back until fall, early winter.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So we could do council workshop, get their input, and then bring it back here.
Right.
And then we'll go from
And
there.
then take next steps with community interaction.
I think it's also important that we kind of express to the city council what our thought patterns were on this, why it is that we're saying the first almost dozen, we're not recommending any changes, but we are recommending changes on the second dozen because we're looking at, the future growth of North St. Paul in the corridor. And that's why we're saying that we feel like these need to be done here and they don't need to be done on these side roads where it's not going to have as much impact. Because otherwise, what I suspect is we're going to hear a number of property owners come up and say, why are you doing this? Even though we try to explain it to them, what our thought process is, people don't like change. And if we don't explain to the council what our thought process is, they're more likely to say, well, why are you changing this when property owner
Right.
XYZ says, don't change it?
Right. I agree.
Okay, well, I will go ahead and get that on a future agenda of city council and report back with the outcome of that.
Good.
Sorry, I guess I'm stating the obvious.
Sometimes it needs to be done.
Any other discussion on the topic? We're wrapping up our agenda pretty soon here. Move on to item 8 on the agenda, which is reports.
Yeah, the only thing I have to report on, we don't have any applications coming up for planning commission to review. I've started to do a little bit of the very beginning of taking a crack at updating the zoning code. So I've downloaded it, and I've started with the introduction, intent and purpose sections. And so my goal is to take it in bite-sized pieces as we have time, and we have time at the moment. I will go through and redline it and reorganize it as it makes sense in my head, and then try to prepare a memo that explains as succinctly as possible what's happening in the track changes version, so you can understand the rationale as to why things are being modified. So that's what I'm hoping to bring next month.
Excellent.
Is there a link to the current zoning code on the website we could review between now and then?
Sure.
That, not that we would, but that we could?
I have expected you to memorize it by now.
You don't know
Yeah,
it all?
really? You don't know it all yet?
I'll have Chris send it to you guys tomorrow.
I think you
I'm
can get to
trying
it
to
from the
remember where
website,
it
too.
is on the website. I haven't looked at
I
it.
have it bookmarked, so I can't
There's a lot.
find it easily.
Yeah.
It's probably under government. Oh, there's, yeah, if you go to government and then kind of over to the left.
There's a comp
City
plan.
city code is in big bold.
What is it called?
City code.
City code. I must be.
City code.
It's
So
in
there's
the darker
a
color.
menu at the bottom, if you will.
Here, I can share my screen.
There's commissions and authorities. There's city council is at the top, code of conduct.
Proposed ordinances?
I think if you just.
Yeah, but don't click that. Click the city code, the thing right above it.
Yeah.
And then it'll take you.
Isn't it- it's view the online city code ordinance or view the code here?
Good question.
Just click it.
Goes to the same thing.
Go to the one that says American Legal Publishing.
Okay.
And then you should, are you at a website that looks a little bit
Different?
not exciting? That's it. That's the entire code of ordinances for the city. So then on the left-hand side, you'll see a bunch of titles. Ours is Title 15, Land Use. And if you open that up, Chapter 154 is the zoning.
154 is zoning.
So there's two codes in here that really need to be updated. The land development code, which is our subdivision ordinance, kind of needs to be scrapped. And so I've sort of taken a crack at starting that, but it's a little more challenging than I had initially expected because this is such a different community than what I would we're fully built out, so our needs are much different than a lot of other communities. So it's not
we're in
easy.
Redevelopment mode more
Right.
than expansion mode.
Yeah, so there's not a lot of places that I can just lift from without a lot of, consideration of whether it's appropriate for us or not. The zoning, so I'm working on that as I'm able to, and then the zoning code I kind of moved up to a little bit further, faster priority, just because it's easier for me to tackle. So those will be forthcoming. I would expect that to fully do the entire code is gonna take at least a year, maybe two.
So
And it's gonna be incredibly fun.
Like eating an elephant.
First you have to boil them for 6 months and then
Yeah, right.
So how does the stuff that we're doing, and/or does the stuff that we've been doing coincide with either economic development or the housing and redevelopment? On the things that are on their agendas, are there things that they're working on that we should be aware of and/or vice versa?
So the EDA or the Housing and Redevelopment Authority, the HRA meets very infrequently, and their primary activities are related to the Student Built Housing Program. Are you familiar with that?
No.
Some of you are. Okay, so the city has a partnership with a college. Help me on the name of it.
Yeah,
Century College. There's an instructor there that has been using our, they're teaching a class on how to build houses in real time, and we're providing the land, and then they get sold. So that's what they're doing. The EDA is a much more active group. They meet pretty much monthly, except for this month, it was summertime. They look at how to assist businesses grow or, retain. We want to keep our businesses here in North St. Paul if we can. They're the ones that sponsored the redevelopment master plan, so they were kind of the spearhead behind that. I think they had a lot to do with the Sentinel building and a lot of the other redevelopment activities that have happened. I think without the EDA taking a lead role in that, we probably wouldn't have had all of that development over there. So I just don't have the history of how long they've been around and what all of they've done, but they're quite active, and, you know, I keep them informed of what we're doing, and I'm kind of the liaison to both of them. So there's not going to be an instance where they're going to operate on something that's going to negatively impact a group over here. You know, it's kind of helpful to have the same staff person as the lead for both of those.
Yeah, 'cause I mean, like with, just with the rezoning pieces, if there's conversations that they're having as far as attracting some of the different commercial businesses in the downtown area, where the things that we're zoning are gonna add, potentially, at some point in the future, could potentially add population to that. Of which case, what businesses are gonna be the ones that are gonna be able to support that and/or have, viable? And so are they looking at that longer-term tail to see what they might be able to attract into that area as well?
Yeah, I do think that they are focused on those key points. They do realize that you need to have population density to increase the amount of commercial activity, for example. So that body is fully aware of how we can, the steps that are needed to get the kind of development that we want. The legal mechanisms for how that functions, like the zoning, for example, they probably don't really know how that functions, but we're working in tandem. So we're all moving in the same direction. We're just doing different tasks to get there. I have no other reports.
Reports from commissioners. How about you, Mr. Commissioner Muick?
Nothing to report.
Commissioner Rothy?
Nothing to report.
Commissioner Weiss?
Nothing to report.
I lied. I do have one thing I would like to report.
All right, I get to go last.
So the Park and Recreation Commission is another one that I get to kind of oversee. I don't have to go to the meetings as often, but we are working on a long-range master plan for the Park and Rec system, and we have a survey out there. So please go online, take the survey, and give us your feedback on the Park and Rec system, because we really need to know what the community thinks and what they want to see. So spread it wide. It's in those the newsletter that you signed up for, so you'll be seeing more of that.
So do
make
we
sure-
need to go and find an old version of like a previous newsletter in order to find that, or is it going to be on a current?
It might be on the current one, and it should also be on the city's main website. If you just scroll down, it's probably in there someplace.
Can you send us a link?
Oh my goodness. Send the link, and I was gonna send you something else. What was that?
Code.
Oh,
The code link you just gave us.
You
that
just
was
gave us the
pretty
code
easy.
link.
okay.
Community parks. Sorry, but there's not a web page matching your entry. So much for that.
Don't put in Parks and Rec or else you might get a TV show.
It's dangerous to search for things. You would think under Park and Recreation, there would be, the survey would be, boom, right there.
You can't take logic into account when we're developing web pages.
They continuously evolve.
If you just go to the main site, it's right there. It's right on the main head page.
I did, I went to the homepage.
You did, and you didn't see it there?
No,
It's the first line of news and announcements.
oh, the park survey on the right side there. So, anything else, Brandy?
Nope, that's it.
Then I would just like to make one minor comment. I'm going to publicly tout the efforts of someone that I know very well who suggested to the city to put library-only parking over at the community center.
Oh, who was that?
Last time, not the last time, 2 times ago, I was over at the library and they were all occupied. all those parking spots, which I was very happy to see that one, they were being used, and two, there were that many people in the library, which was encouraging. There were a couple of families in there, and
It's a pretty,
I think
it's heavily used,
it's
from what I
nice to see
understand.
the library used. I really do appreciate that, and I
Great
get that
library.
pretty regularly.
Really, really nice, yeah.
Well, and if you learn the library systems, they're so handy. You
Yeah.
can get whatever you want.
Yep.
It's just amazing, so, very good.
And I will give kudos to the Public Works Office for fast response. On Monday, I called into the switchboard and left a request with the city switchboard operator that they get someone around to fill a pothole in my alley, which is one of the alleys that the city actually controls and maintains. And it was done by Wednesday.
Wow.
So I don't know whether that's because the switchboard operator knows me by name and knows that I'm on the planning commission, or.
You probably
whether-
talked to Jill.
Yeah, or whether it was just the fact that they were that quick to it, but either way, because it was one of those car tire threatening potholes. So,
Yeah, I had the glass globe of my electric meter shattered by the hail we had
Wow.
this past year. And I didn't see it until, the snow had all melted off and I could see this gaping hole in the top. I flagged down a Public Works guy as he drove past my house one day, and I just said, hey, I'm not sure who to talk to, but I have this crack. It was fixed in 2 hours. So he had someone over there, and it was done. I mean, it was amazing. They are, on top of everything.
Yep.
It's really
And they're
great.
doing some nice new lighting over at Silver Lake Park.
They are, and they're also installing new park signs too.
Yeah.
I've seen those.
Yeah,
Those are nice.
they're doing some
Those
work
are really
over there.
nice, yeah.
I think that's one of the advantages to living in a smaller city.
Yeah.
I know we get things here that, it's like, I don't think in the 6 years I've lived here, I've ever lost power for more than a couple of hours, and that was because somebody ran into a power transformer and knocked it out.
Mm-hmm.
And, so far, I sit there and I chuckle at the people that are responding that Excel is 5 days out from being able to reconnect their power and what have you.
With that, would anyone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion to adjourn.
Motion from Commissioner Rothy.
I'll second, just because I haven't said
Second
anything
from
else today.
Commissioner Muick. All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.